presentation. And when we're finished, I need those blue forms filled out because we're proud to be a United Way agency, and they asked for this information. And trying to think. Oh, and there are books and CDs on the table that if you would like to purchase them, that's fine. If you don't, that's fine. Elise brought them along with her. Okay? All right, Elise, I'll let you have the floor.
Thank you. Well, good afternoon. My name is Elise Brion. Currently, I am an inspirational speaker, a mother, a musician, a published author. I also have a job at the Missouri Orthopedic Institute in Columbia, Missouri. My family and I live on land south of Columbia, but I was born and raised in St. Louis. So it's wonderful to be here, very much so. My goodness, we have an hour, but how can we ever talk about the fullness of what needs to be discussed when it comes to healing with mental illness and issues pertaining to. I'm going to just begin though, because this is a journey that I know very, very well. And that journey never stops. Healing never stops. But one of the most important things that is a part of the ministry I'm called to engage in is that the inspiration and the fire of optimism that is born of experience is shared. Because when you know, when you have mastered something, when you can feel and when you can see in your own life that you have really succeeded in something, it is indeed a part of what I see as a personal obligation to share it where one is guided to share it. Also, as a brief aside, I'm also the host of a weekly webcast exclusively aired through Facebook called Infinite Healing Now. And that's actually a new project for myself that's been so amazingly fruitful, to where we go live every Thursday night at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. The show itself one can find on Facebook typing in Infinite Healing Now. And that's been so rich because we cover a huge range of topics all about healing. And interestingly, I began the whole show just a few months ago focused on the topic of depression. And that topic was so sought after. I had people contacting me left and right saying, please do another broadcast on depression. So we ended up doing 3 weeks in a row on healing from depression alone. So, you know, here's what we're going to do. Because I know that healing, and I do stress this word healing. I've heard lots of presenters and read so many books on overcoming and living with mental illness. Well, my perspective is exclusively about healing, with much respect and consideration for all of the workers and therapists and people out there who have their own verbiage about mental illness. I focus on healing. So I'm also going to go kind of cross-linear, because the journey of healing is not linear. As we well know, when one loves is dealing with any kind of mental illness, it is a rocky, steep slope of jagged turns, twists that you don't expect, and there's nothing linear about it, save for the facts and the chronology of what you've been through. So that's kind of how we're going to flow today. Again, it's really a joyous blessing to be here with you all. So the first thing we identify is the parasite of the past is dead. But one problem with any and all mental illnesses is that the individual has a stuckedness about that which is past still being part of one's present reality. And this is a very difficult thing, which I have total empathy, not just compassion, but when you have empathy for something, that means you have a bond of knowing of what that's like. And so we're going to talk we're going to talk more about that, but I firmly declare that what has been in the past is energetically no longer. And that's the first and foremost problem. In the middle picture, you see myself at age 21 on a fast slope of anorexia nervosa. I'm almost 6 feet tall, and I got down to between 94 and 95 pounds which is considered to be severe anorexia. That was the second stage of the low, the second lowest period of my experience, which we'll get to. But, you know, the pictures on the left and right symbolize the torture that mental illness does bring. And we're just going to proceed and go really in depth today. The birthright of transformation. This is your birthright. As one who is alive and gifted and blessed with this life, our birthright is transformation. From a dead past into a powerful present for a glorious future. That is the name of this presentation, the core of why we are here together. And life is a holy and sacred blessing. We're here to uplift each other and all those in our life, not here present, because when we leave here today, my specific intention and hope is that we all go out with an ever greater expanded awareness of just how cherished and important we are as individuals and collectively as we are as a human family on this earth in this very important time and space. Again, the picture on the left, myself on the right, taken just a few weeks ago, enjoying and rejoicing. So the keys to transformation, and I'm going to talk about this slide first, but then necessarily tell you about details of my past. But the keys to transformation, as I have tried to summarize and condense my own experience and figuring out how God showed me this and what would be the best way to really make it hands-on to where I could speak about everything that I've been through so that it would make sense and be applicable to anybody out there who had interest in the subject of healing from mental illness. And this is the best that it's an ever-growing process, but number one is to have faith in life. The very fact that we are alive in the flesh is no accident. Life is indeed a natural and a supernatural gift. And the faith in the very fact of your existence is kind of a core place that I really would hope and pray that all psychotherapists, psychologists, counselors, pastors, and the individual, him or herself, would practice. And we're going to go into each of these in more depth as we go along. Number two, a commitment to renewal. The commitment and the dedication and the discipline is what falls into number two, that it ain't no easy ride to let go of this past, which is indeed dead. But the commitment to stay on the path, no matter how rocky and wavy that does display itself, is absolutely vital in these keys to transformation. Number three, practice. How do we put into practice steps 1 and 2? They all flow together. There's no delineation, no, I must do this step, and this step. They're all an intertwining, very amazing and quite mysterious, really, form of unfolding into the new you, who is a rejuvenated you. So that's the framework of what we're going to discuss. I'm going to jump along first to get to a timeline. And my son is actually helping me to record this. I'd ask you to pan on into that to make sure we can see that visibly. But you need to know what I've been through, like why I'm even here. First of all, it's an absolutely unfathomable miracle that I am here now, and you will very much see why. So I was born in 1977, so you can do the math. That means I'm 39 years old today. I was baptized and educated within the Catholic Church, born 1977 through 1988. You know, going to school at a private Christian school, Mass every day, Monday through Friday, and again on Sunday. So I had a father that was very, very religious, extremely religious, and very firm in his faith. Okay, and so this, my friends, this is a summary of the chaos mixed with general details at the end of the beauty. And this is kind of the necessary flow to explain why I am even here. So food restriction bulimia with psychological treatment began at 9 years old. Amazingly, 9 years old. First hospitalization with psychiatric treatment began when I was 13 years old, and I'm going to briefly stop there. At 9 years old, I began to restrict food as well as began with bulimic practices. And the short end of that is my own father, who was from the Philippine Islands, had a very tumultuous and chaotic life where he was growing up seeing bombs dropped and family members blown up, and having a mother herself who went catatonically depressed when my father's brother was literally blown up by shrapnel in front of the family. Okay, so wartime in the Philippines, and my daddy was born into that and grew up in that. So he grew up with internal and stuffed rage. And part of what I want to really identify is that the depression and various other forms of mental illness, I know from personal experience, and this is my testimony, that whatever your parents and foreparents and grandparents have experienced, I know that there is a carryover that crosses through to future generations. Call it genetic disposition, whatever you want. I'm not a scientist, I'm not a doctor, but because of my own experience, I know that my daddy carried sorrow that deeply embedded into his own cellular physiology and the deepest parts of his mind. So when he came over to this country in the 60s with the intention to have a renewed life, a renewed rebirth, everything, those little demons inside weren't gone because he hadn't given them up. And, you know, fast forward to about 15, 20 years later when I was born, my father displayed some very psychopathic anger, unpredictable rage that just exploded at any given point. And I grew up seeing and loving a daddy like that. He provided for me and my sister and our family. He was, you know, sent us to a private school, fed us, loved us in his own way, but he was not free of his internal demons. Now, interestingly, he was a man of faith, okay? But he wasn't at a place where he really believed he was free. He did not have that faith in life, which we were talking about. So, growing up in a household like that, I stuffed it, took it in on my own, couldn't understand why my daddy was the way he was, loved him so deeply, wanted to be the best possible daughter I could possibly be. And we all know what happens when you take on somebody else's rage and can't figure out why it's their own and not having to do with you. As a child, we know what happens in a family that is dysfunctional. We don't even have to explore that part. So I'm giving you a backdrop of why at 9 years old I started to internalize that. And also, it was a desperate need for attention. Okay, all that rage and anger is pummeled on all the family, and the child and his or her soulful and spiritual needs are left ignored. So we know that in a dysfunctional family, a child is left to figure out, A, what on earth they're doing in this world, not having parents who are, God bless them all, of a place of release to where they can assist and nurture this child in the way he or she needs to be. And B, where is my fit in this family? Okay, so just all these barrages of things start to happen to this child. And folks, we just don't even know. In this day and age, I'm going to say this was back in the 80s when all this behavior started for me. I say that in this time and space, in 2016, there are things happening for our children internally and externally that we can't even fully identify. And that to me is, I mean, it's giving me chills to talk about that right now. So personal renewal, personal transformation, absolutely please know and believe that your healing directly affects all in life because all is indeed unified. Okay, first hospitalization with psychiatric treatment, inpatient at Election Brothers. No, St. Anthony's is where it was. That's when psychiatric medication first came into play. And as a little child, I didn't fight it. I just did what was told. But 7 years pass or so, okay? And at 20 years of age, in fact, Good Friday of 1997, March, I overdosed on a whole bottle of Coumadin, which is a blood thinning medication, and then I sat in a car with the engine turned on for about 20 minutes. And the EMTs, or I was pronounced medically dead, and sometime afterwards, in the space of a few hours, I was actually revived and brought back to life. And there begins, you know, that was the epitome, huge, I mean, that was the biggest of the big, that started a propelling in my soul mind of the discovery path of who I really was. And I am really general, you know, going over these so as to fit all of our time properly together. After I was revived, and I need to include that I was put into a hyperbaric chamber, which is a very dangerous and risky operation because it's 120% oxygen, and you can literally blow up a body if it's not monitored right, or all sorts of complications can happen. But they had to do a carbon, what do you call it? Goodness. They had to detoxify, charcoal. You know, they had to stick me with tubes and pump me with charcoal to get the Coumadin out. And combined with this risky, should we even put her body in the hyperbaric chamber, because doctors were saying, you know, this is done. You know, there's no vital, so why are we even doing this? But like I said, life is supernatural, and there is absolutely one who's in charge of all of that life. And by the grace of God, the decision was made to proceed with these medical steps. So, you know, the things that I remember is the horror and the place of, and I, again, remember this is my language, so understand that, please, that the place of demonic possession that my mind had been in with this suicidal psychosis, which had propelled me to the point of just done. This is not my world. I don't belong here. I don't know this family. I have no idea who I am. I'm ready to go. Okay? Had taken me to that point, and I remember everything up until the point of being in the car and being ready and seeming so firm and decisive in my mind that it was just time. So from that point, in my conscious memory, and then the next conscious memory is waking up in that hyperbaric chamber. If you're interested in the in-between things, because that's where my spirit definitely had the experience that it did, in that in-between stage, I put that in my book, She Breathes Infinity, which details all of this. But when I came back, vitally wise, they had vitals, but I had brain damage and heart damage. I couldn't talk, I could make sounds, I couldn't formulate full sentences, I couldn't even think a complete thought. I remember the total fear that I had and disappointment that I was back. Even though I saw the very supernatural and awesome things that I saw in that in-between time, when I was back in my body and I knew it, the only thing that God had left me with was the ability to feel the emotions. And that's something I will never, ever, ever forget. So you know, brain damage, heart damage. Doctors were telling my family that it was very unlikely that I would come back from anything normal based on what I had done. You know, carbon monoxide poisoning to the brain, Coumadin taking over my blood. So miracle right there. So in this phenomenal space of time, again, this happened March 1997, hospitalization for you know, ICU treatment, then inpatient psychiatric treatment. Remember, March 1997. Folks, I was back at University of Missouri in September of 1998 with the decision and intention to finish up what had begun, the start of my college experience. And so if you think about that time, March 1997, September 1998, back, there's a phenomenal and impossible to rationally analyze space of healing. And still I get shocked when I talk about it because it's unfathomable even to myself. but we're going to talk about what happened in my mind, what I chose, and how I made those choices in practice as we go along. Very quickly, I wasn't done that, though. I wasn't done. At that stage in my life, I decided to use positive affirmations to psych myself through. My parents were still insistent in the period after the suicide that I was never to be alone. And rightly so, understandably so. But I went everywhere where they went, and I have regular meetings with my psychiatrist, and not so much any psychologist now that I think about it. But I had a very traditional psychiatrist who put me on Depakote. I had been on Paxil. What else was I on? You know, this is back in the 80s. It's hard to even remember. Xanax, I think. But, you know, the Depakote was one where they had to do blood monitoring every week because those levels can get toxic very easily. I'm also going to acknowledge a fact in that I was really medically non-compliant at that point in my life because I had this struggle going on with my spirit, which is whom I really am, combined with my soul mind. And I use soul mind to identify the thinking Elise, the Elise formulated in this world. My spirit is not of this world. And then there's the ego, which is a whole other aspect of our existence down here. But I had this fight where I knew at that stage that I was not anything of the past, but I was in this position in real time in this world where my parents were choosing, out of concern and love and fear, a certain modality of care. And what I really stress for anybody is that if you are engaged in psychiatric care, please do not mess with your medications. It is so vitally important that you stay on the path of wherever you are, willing to do the soulful and spiritual work while, pray God, you are working with a doctor who is truly listening to you. But I know firsthand how pretending that you are taking medications, lying about it, and then occasionally taking them just to get you through the next blood test is a very serious biochemical problem that could cause physiological issues. And I won't even go there, but what I now know is that the power of healing in the faith of life is truly what will get you through anything and everything that you are currently experiencing, no matter what the modality of care for mental illness is. And I have no bones about supporting that whatsoever. Meaning no issues at all with supporting somebody who says, listen, I'm choosing psychiatric care, you know, and maybe psychological care, and I'm taking these pills. I just say, trust and have faith and stay your course because life is ever changing. And what you are doing now very well might not be what it is in a year's time. Just be patient and trust in faith in life. But when I was back at school, though, my father, he himself was dying from congestive heart failure. And my own internal issues were not given back to the Lord. You know, I still was fighting all these deep-seated things that I just wasn't letting go of. So in my positive affirmations, which I'm really vehemently against, and I'll explain why, I was saying things like, I am completely separate and free from everything and every one of my past. Okay, I would look in the mirror and use these very simple sentences saying like, I am made of light. Okay, on the surface those sound good, right? I am made of positivity, I am made of happiness. What I was doing is putting icing over a cake that was not even baked. Okay, yes, and you can debate that, but we're going to talk about the difference between positive affirmations and convictions. And I really feel a strong difference between that. So I was still taking it out on myself and did more food restrictions, going back to the behaviors that I had been doing at 9 and 13. In college, getting thinner and thinner and thinner, working out, exercising, as my dad was dying. Therefore, I did not have a menstrual period for 3 years. 3. as a young woman. That causes chaos with your hormones when the natural flow of your womanly reproductive process is stopped by your own force. That's going to cause more imbalance with the electrical continuity of how the body naturally operates. Miraculously, I was still in a college program. I still can't figure out how I was managing to do this. Then I had a heart attack due to the anorexia in that space of time. So that was the second plummet down to the abyss. In the book, She Breathes Infinity, I talk about that miracle where I was running in extremely hot weather, y'all know Missouri, in July, in the early morning to where I knew nobody else was out there. I had my fiance was in college doing a part-time job, but I had things planned strategically. And everybody who has a journey with mental illness knows what I'm talking about, because the mental illness will cause one to make sure certain things are under the table, make sure certain things are not seen, and oh, you're looking at the master of that, past tense. So I got up there, started running at 7, at approximately 8, between the 8 and 8:30 a.m. hour on a super hot July, I crashed with a heart attack. I could feel that. This time there was no going over to the other side. This time there was no vision of amazing, beautiful light. This time there was no vision I was given of my future children, who interestingly are sitting here among us. That's what happened when I had experienced the suicide. This time it was just a flat, like chest exploding, dead, and then drop. But what happened miraculously is some man who later identified himself as Michael, interestingly enough, found me, and I do not have any conscious memory of this man, but this individual found me on that trail, scooped me up. I was already 2.5 miles away out of the city. He scooped me up and he ran me back into town to take me to University Hospital. So the next thing I remember from that is waking up again in intensive care with a beautiful Texan doctor saying, "Honey girl, I'm so glad you're here." So at that point is when the miraculous up begins. At that point I am 23 years old and released from the eating disorder hospital where I spent 2.5, 3 months at Kansas City Baptist Medical Center, which sadly no longer exists. But I was discharged from there in September of 2000. You can see that here. And then my menstrual period came back in December of 2000. September, October, November, December. 3 tiny months after it not being at all through my body for 3 years. I praise God for this. I mean, the miracles are just endless, always. And then I became pregnant with my son in February of 2001. And my son is here in this room. I became pregnant again with my daughter in December of 2003. They are both alive, healthy, amazing, successful students in school. And I'm obviously speaking with you in full language, in full capacity, and in radiant joy. All right, so just a few pictures of the miraculousness. My mother and stepfather on the top left. Myself with my newborn baby, 2 days old. My daughter, newborn on the right. And my children as they're growing up. And today, again, here's more fast-forward pictures. I share these photos with you because I instill and I just radiate to the best of my ability the joy of transformation, because it's about that process, that flow, that wavy and crazy journey that prayerfully should go like this and not like this. And part of my mission is to give the skills, to teach the skills of what I know works, and so that you can integrate that hopefully into your own life. At the bottom right is myself with the animals and my sweet daughter whom I care for. And we're going to talk about that the natural world and how important that is into one's transformation journey. My family, of course, on the left, wouldn't be here without them at all. If you don't have a blood lineage family, This is one challenge for people with mental illnesses. It saddens deeply my heart to know that there is a huge percentage of people suffering from mental illness who are seemingly physically alone on this planet, but that is not the ultimate reality. Is that there is a huge family, especially people who have gone through some sort of mental illness, and a personal prayer is that individuals like this would then come to connect with amazing souls and people to become the family that all need. So again, more fast forward, I'm an inspirational speaker. Bottom left photo is people within the Christian activist community that I am working with. That was recently at a rosary rally in Jefferson City that we organized to pray for the American nation and the American people and the world in the awakening of faith in life. That's the top right is a picture of myself and my co-author of some other books that I've written, and of course myself bottom right. This is just a quick shot of my music albums. I'd like to share a song or two for you today. I brought my guitar to share some of that. But we're going to talk about how expression is indeed a part of the transformative journey in the healing. So, to live healed now is the mission. To live healed now. That's the common phraseology of my show, Infinite Healing Now. We start the show with Live Healed Now, and we end the show with Live Healed Now. Because it is very much possible, no matter where one is in their mental illness, to embed and embody aspects of living healed now to where it just increases into something greater and more rich. Okay, so I think we missed, did I fast forward? I think I missed, here we go. Let's see. Excuse me for just a minute. Okay, so yeah, back to the keys. Faith in life. You are life. I am life. We are life. We need to remember certain facts, biological facts, that transformation is a part of your nature. There are over 32 trillion cells in the body, in a body, that are constantly dying and being reborn, dying and being reborn. The natural state of existence is this transformation. And the problem and the difficulty we have within mental illnesses is there is this entrenched and ingrained lie, full belief that everything is stuck and nothing can change. And this is one of the fallacies and the errors that and I dare say I am making a generalization, but I believe it to be true, that anybody with any diagnosed mental illness has a huge problem with. And one thing that I encourage people to do, even when I hear people who come to me, and I'm not a certified psychologist, definitely not a psychiatrist, but I'm a Christian counselor, and I say, look at the facts. So I talk about that physiology. 32 trillion cells constantly dying and reborn. Your skin cells in a month's time are totally brand new. Your whole physical body in 1 year's time, no matter the effort you put into it, is physiologically brand new. So to study on that and to take time on the internet, for example, to read up on biology, I encourage people to go into places of study that they haven't before, to retrain the brain, which is another phrase that I use consistently. Gotta retrain the brain, retrain the brain. That's a part of renewing the soul mind. And that's a phenomenal thing. Another fact of nature is there was this amazing Japanese medical scientist named Masaru Emoto who wrote a book called The Power of Water. It took him 22 years to finally capture a molecule of water from the freezing point, just between the freezing point unto the liquid state. And he knew, he was guided intuitively, and I say that he was guided spiritually. He wanted to prove to the world, scientific world, that a water molecule would change by the way thought and emotion projected onto it. It took 22 years, thereabout, maybe 25. 25 years to get that photo right. But folks, he got it. And in his book, The Power of Water, proves scientifically that when you take a sample of water from the same source, 2 vials, and you label one love, compassion, adoration, commitment, peace, he monitored those changes scientifically and put that in his book, compared to that same vial of water, same biological sample, and put curses. I hate you, you're ugly, you're filthy, you're worthless, and you should see the photos. It is just a stark, dramatic, in-your-face proof of what happens with the power of convictions. Convictions. And we'll talk about that convictions word. So translate that back into biology. You know that you're made of almost 100% water. My goodness. So can you feel the power there? Can you feel the power and the possibility of what commanding in the retraining of your brain, the renewal of your mind, in the faith of life can do? So prayerfully you'll get your hands on that book, because he talks about the space of time. We're not saying that talking like that you see the molecular change in water over a period of days or weeks. He was able to monitor those vials of water and show an instant change in the molecular design. So if you're, and I'm so sorry, now that when you think about how to do things better, I could have put some examples of those 2 water molecules, but he could show how this perfectly, like a snowflake, you all have seen images of a snowflake, perfect ordination and composition of this molecule of water to this weird, disjointed, ugly, the color of it changed, but no structure whatsoever when they were cursed. Now, interestingly, he then took that same cursed vial of water, and we can compare this to thinking, I'll compare to myself. That cursed body, that cursed mind that I did unto myself, and he took that vial of water and then put the same, changed the frequency of the conviction. I love you. You are beautiful. You are cherished. You are mine. And guess what? The molecules changed. But they didn't change back to the original molecular structure of the water from which he first sampled. It was a brand new molecular form. Beautiful. The composition is just amazing in these photos. Go online, you can see it for yourself. The power of water. And if you put in a dash there and write E-M-O-T-O, that is his last name, Dr. Masaru Emoto. See the photos for yourself. They're absolutely mind-blowing. And then your purpose is returned to in activating faith. Because what I know that I heard through my own mind back in those days, as well as people for whom that are with me in counseling, is that I have no idea what I'm doing down here. I mean, yes, I'm functional now. I have a job. I'm paying the bills. That alone in itself is a miracle, folks. If those physical realities didn't exist before, okay, or if you are on a disability check or getting help, God bless you, from family or friends, whatever you're doing now that is different in a positive way is in and of itself purpose and is in and of itself miraculous. But people say, okay, fine, yeah, I'm another cog in the machine, just like everybody else in this world, I'm getting the bills paid. I just don't feel that richness of what I'm supposed to be doing here. And in activating the faith in life, which is we talked about as step number 1, in activating the faith, that purpose is unfolded. Because then you realize that as you're mastering something, you are then stronger and stronger in the ability to help this other individual who comes along in your life who needs something just as you did, but now in a different way. So it's this unfolding, this flowering of discovery of what your purpose is. And I I say, as a core answer to that, if somebody were going to be putting me on the spot and say, what is the purpose of all humans on this planet? And I would say, the purpose of all human beings on this planet is to live unified in the joy of belonging to life. The purpose of all human beings is to live joyfully in the awareness of belonging to life. To me, it makes total sense, and I just get what I call whooshes through every atom of my being when I say that. Everybody, of course, can find their own words, and I'm not saying that that's, you know, your only purpose, but for me, that to me kind of very much in a huge hug embraces all of humanity and individuals themselves. So, commitment to renewal, and my gosh, wow, time, amazing. Okay, yeah, okay. So, commitment to renewal, and this is where we can have a discussion, and I'm pretty extreme in some of my beliefs and practices, but we can talk about that a bit. Number one, the diet of the soul, mind, and the flesh, eating that which nurtures. Because for me, the diet of the soul, mind, otherwise known as the retraining of the brain or the renewal of the mind, is part and parcel, equanimous, equal, rather, with what you are physically eating. When I take a bite now in my life, I take a grape and I say, internally, I say, I'm eating the joy of life. Because to me, they have just become the same, and I encourage people who are suffering in mental illness to reconfigure what you are seeing when you take a bite of food. Because if you retrain your brain in taking even that bite of pizza and saying, you know, I am thankful for this piece of life, that is going to transform your next 5 minutes, your next 30 seconds. There is something biological and physiological that happens when you just take that first step of commanding your mind to re-see in a new light what you are putting into your body. Same thing, the nourishment of the convictions, these statements, these expressions, is food. It's food for your soul mind. It's definitely food of your spirit. Yes to nature. Yes to spending time, even if you can't get outside, put yourself in front of a window where there's some amount of sunlight. We all know the interesting medical statistics about what sunlight does, vitamin D for the body. If you have problems, some people say, well, that's good for you, but I've got a skin issue. Well, there's different ways of experiencing light. So find that and make nature a part of your daily activities as much as you can. Even if that means sitting in front of the internet and looking at amazing, beautiful imagery and videos of nature spots in this world. We are blessed to have the internet in that way. Simple stillness, other people call it meditation. In this world of chaos and distraction, you cannot let go of the past without even 5 minutes. Now I recommend 5 minutes upon waking in the morning and 5 minutes before going to bed with simple stillness and attention to the breath. And I'm not going to go into a lot of that because there's 1.5 million tutorials on the practice, but what that does is that commands over the chaos of the never-ending thinking that we all have. To put it into discipline of one's daily life says to life, who to me is God, the ultimate, the one in control of life, is that I am giving myself this space of time to receive life as much as I fully can. So it's a gift to life that you're offering in that stillness, and it's a gift to yourself. And it's powerful medicine, powerful medicine. And I dare say, and I do say, simple stillness is different from prayer. Prayer is talking. Prayer is speaking to life, speaking to God. Stillness is receiving. Stillness is receiving. Exercise, even if that means sitting in your chair, you know, and lifting your legs. If you don't like walking, and some people just don't like sweating, you find your way to keep keep a repetition for your body. Because that is the stimulation of oxygen, it's the stimulation of the water, of what your flesh is made of. It's the allowance and the gift that you give to yourself to say, okay, I can't stop thinking, but I know that I'm going to do my 20 minutes of a walk in my favorite park. It's your gift to yourself, and it's your gift, again, to life. So that the exercise and is combined and interconnected with the stillness. And of course, we all know the physiological benefits of exercise, but the spiritual and soulful benefits are tremendous. Spiritual reading, of course, you know, the Holy Bible, all these amazing writers out there. But I also encourage discernment, because one can get really lost in the self-help book universe. And before I encourage people to really dive into spiritual reading, to me, these, you know, the first three are very important, because quieting oneself and nourishing oneself in the convictions and the stillness allows one to develop discernment and allows one to have a better ability to see and be guided to what authors or what movies are really going to be helpful and what's just going to distract and put too much in your mindscape. And then finally, you know, discernment in social activities, ooh, biggie, biggie. I used to be a social organizer in midwifery circles, you know, all things environmental movement, I was a part of front and center. And in the stage of my life, because it wasn't just depression, I was diagnosed with chronic depression. I think they labeled it A and B. I don't even know or recall what all that means right now anymore. But I was also diagnosed with bipolar manic depression. So, you know, in my highs, just on fire with work. But I realized that the people that I was involving myself with, I just had this wake-up call, finally, when I was on the up, and staying on the up, that everybody from my past wasn't whom I should be sticking with. And that is an important thing, to develop discernment about the social interactions that we have in our life. No to excessive internet, Netflix, TV, video games, parasitic activities, and people of the past. These all kind of go together. You know, we can easily turn to the internet and Netflix and movies to get away, just like smoking a joint, just like taking, you know, the next beer. It is so easy to socially sanctioned escapes are very easy to engage in. So use those. Don't use any of the parasitic. Don't involve in going. Don't get yourself back into the bar scene or into the gossip circles, or into the ladies who just want to shop all the time. You know, don't go back into those, but go moderately, if not stopping altogether for a space of time, the internet, the Netflix, and just stay with yourself in life for a period of time. Yes to healthy foods and drink, and no to soda. I am a big, you know, it's obvious about nutrition. We don't even have to go there, but I'm very adamantly, personally, against drinking soda. I have family members who, and I myself had an addiction to diet soda and soda for a period of years. And now it is being proven that one drink of soda does cellularly shut down every system in the body. And that medical proof is out there too. I also know firsthand that the combination that soda drinking absolutely becomes an addiction because of the very nature of what the corporations are putting into the soda, that causes your body and your mind to crave more. And because sodas physiologically cause the body to dehydrate, that's a huge problem for people on medications. Huge problem. So it's difficult when experiencing a mental illness. Moderation is a big challenge. It's a very big challenge. So I encourage people, you know, I don't command, I don't ever say you have to or you should, but I always say I encourage you to explore, you know, what behaviors you have, that are not serving you. And I know we're getting close, so your success is found in your daily routine. It's not 5 months down the line. It's not, I've succeeded when I've lost 5 pounds, 10 pounds. It's not, I've succeeded when I have gotten my own place away from my parents. It's in your daily routine. It's in this very moment. Timeless is healing. Timeless is true life. And so lastly, the practice. We talked about retraining the brain in convictions, not affirmations. A conviction is an expression, whether that be verbalized or thought in prayer. A conviction is a truth that is inviolable in life, such as we've identified a few of them. I am life. That's a conviction. That's not a positive affirmation. Okay? I was born for love. That is also a conviction, not an affirmation. Because an affirmation is, again, I mean, this is the challenging part because I can feel the difference when I say certain things. And I guess my point is, spend time really for yourself, you know, listening, and coming up with your own short little sentence that makes sense to you, but not something that you get off, you know, the internet or a feel-good site. There is a difference because a conviction is born of, like I said, an internal and eternal statement of truth versus a polish over that is just there to gloss something that you're not really sinking into the deeper issue about. Convictions, again, are food and water. Like, I'm going to eat this handful of nuts, and then knowing that this is life. I'm taking this drink of water because I am made of water, and water is life, and water is a blessing. So the convictions that you're feeding your soul mind are the same, or they can be the same as the food. And we've got like less than 5 minutes?
We do.
Yeah, okay. So again, this is just a repeat of expression. The last thing I want to say, and this is where we get into the song, because expression, journaling, looking at the gifts God has given you of creativity, crocheting, gardening, use whatever joyful activity that you possess. And if you don't have one, think about what you would like to explore and weave those expressions into all of this modality of applying the keys of transformation. Because the more you express, the more you are going to become stronger, and the more you will be able to see that strength and share that strength for others. And on that note, I want to just kind of go back to that one beautiful screen right there. And if I may, there's a song that I wrote. Oh, I can't even remember, but I'm just going to sing it. And I can jump the highest mountain with a stride in my step, and I can swim a million oceans, 'cause deep and low is where I take my breath. You see, I'm free in this love, and I know our place in this body, and I am here to radiate what life would have all to see. And when will you drink of the chalice of everlasting life? When will you take a step into the starry home of a joy that lives beyond this world? Every moment, every boy and girl, heaven is here and now. But there you are in the dark and suffering of the past. There you are looking into a mirror that will never last. Oh, give it all away to the only one who is forever the same. Yesterday, tomorrow, and forever. The only life is the living joy of forever. So, and on the horizon, the promises live in the daughters and the sons, the lambs would receive the power of the one that breathes your body now, and a kingdom come. So the only thing I gotta say lastly is live, healed now. Thank you very much.